There we go. Welcome to the Career Personality Assessment webinar. My name is Chris Miller. I am the WSU Global Campus Career Advisor. If you have any questions, I guess I don't have to go over that part.
Yeah, just drop it in there. Oh, yeah.
That's right, in the chat box of the Q&A. Tonight I'm talking about career personality assessment. And what does that mean exactly? It's probably one of the most confusing or at least ambiguous areas of career assessment. Whereas for the most part, people understand what you're talking about when you say career interest assessment. How do your general interests prepare, or how do your general interests align with career opportunities, interests and disinterests, and what are your, work values? What's important to you about your job, and how does that apply to career possibilities? Same thing with skills, obviously. What kind of skills are applicable to different career areas? But talking tonight about career personality, what exactly does that mean? Well, we're talking about the Myers-Briggs type indicator assessments, essentially. And I use the term, and most career counselors, advisors, coaches use the term career personality, because we're talking about your work preferences, how you process information, how you derive energy, how you make decisions. So we kind of boil this all down into this area called, work personality. And how does assessing those areas, um, how does that translate into work opportunities, or help you figure out how you can make decisions about where you might be a good fit in terms of career? So that's what I mean when I'm saying career personality. So I might say that term again. I might just say Myers-Briggs. I might say MBTI. I'm saying the same thing when I'm talking about this type of career assessment. And so when I take a look here at the career development process, we're mostly in the yellow section talking about strengths and traits, assessing those areas in order to explore options and getting focused and taking action. But in terms of a Myers-Briggs assessment, knowing your personality, your strengths, your traits, it'll help you explore options to a certain amount, which I will talk about when I talk about the limitations, but definitely help in the blue section too in getting focused with the decision-making part. When you're doing the career research and you're assessing um, how does my style fit into a given career, a given job occupation, an industry, a company? That's how the Myers-Briggs and these personality assessments can really help you with your career development planning. So that's kind of a general overview there. In terms of limitations um, to any career assessment, these are ones that Richard Bowles has highlighted. He's the famous author of What Color is Your Parachute, an iconic career development novel and workbook that I would recommend to anyone who's interested in figuring out, you know, what they want to do when they grow up, or how they can transition from what they're doing to something different. But he identified all these limitations and rules that you should keep in mind before taking any career assessment. So no test can fully measure you. You should let intuition be your guide. Try not to predetermine how you want the test to turn out. You're looking for clues and suggestions, and most helpful, and especially with this type of assessment, to try out several different ones. Um, I'm taking these from the Job Hunters Bible website. That is the companion piece to Richard Bowles' What Color is Your Parachute? Um, so specifically with this assessment, career personality assessments, what are the limitations? These are for a general understanding of personality in relation to career development. It is not a good assessment of general personality, what possibly could be. It is, like I said, it's the most ambiguous area of assessment. How do you operationally define personality? How do you boil it down enough into increments and segments where you could actually say you are reliably assessing something that we're calling personality? Um, I would say one of the most widely known assessments for quote unquote personality is the MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. And this is really used in clinical psychology, for adult personality and psychopathology. So, essentially in identifying how a personality disorder might fit for a person within the guidelines of the DSM 4 or 5, wherever we're at now with the revisions of it. But that so it's attempting to assess something that is basically impossible to assess. So it's good for or the limitations are it should be used for understanding and clarifying specific work preferences and finding possible links to job, families, and occupation. So that is another area um, that I've alluded to, that this assessment alone, if you're just to do this assessment, it is not a great tool for career exploration. But if you use it in conjunction with an interest assessment, like the Strong or the Yonet Interest Profiler that I always highlight for these webinars and for the work I do as a career advisor, if you pair it with a skill assessment or a work values assessment, then you're really utilizing it to its highest potential, I would say. Um, One of the other things I would say about the limitations of this specific type of assessment is that they've shown after a 6 month period, so if you do a test and a retest, you take the MBTI, you take a personality assessment, you get certain outcome, one of the 16 types for this one, you retake in 6 months later, there's about a 50% chance you'll get a different outcome. So the reliability of this assessment isn't the best. And so you just want to use it cautiously, the results cautiously in terms of how it applies to your career researching and your career development. Okay, so now to save some bandwidth here, I will do that. That'll be helpful on my end. Going to look at the 16 different types and just kind of briefly highlight them. I'm going to ask later on, if you want to, you don't have to. If you were able to complete the assessment beforehand, you throw your type in the chat box or the Q&A section, if I can ever find that, which I think I know how to. Then I will provide you some more information about your specific type. And so when you see the 16 Jungian types here, the results you get from taking the personality assessment, like the Trudy one that we're doing for this, or an MBTI, or one of the many other ones that are all based in the Myers-Briggs world, that you'll get these 16 types with these titles to kind of give you an overall feel for what it means. And sometimes these titles change from place to place. So it may not be exactly what you have seen before, but it's generally going to be the same no matter what. So I'm actually going to start with ISTJ. That's the inspector. Serious and quiet, interested in security and peaceful living, extremely thorough, responsible, and dependable, well-developed powers of concentration, usually interested in supporting and promoting traditions and establishments. ISTP is the operator, quiet and reserved, interested in how and why things work, excellent skills with mechanical things, risk takers who live for the moment, usually interested in and talented at extreme sports. Detached and analytical, they excel at finding solutions to practical problems. ISFJ is the protector. They are quiet, kind, and conscientious, can be depended on to follow through, usually puts the needs of others above their own needs, stable and practical, extremely perceptive of others' feelings, interested in serving others. ISFP is the composer. They are quiet, serious, sensitive, and kind. They do not like conflict and do not like things that may generate conflict. They are flexible and open-minded, like to be original and creative, and enjoy the present moment. The counselor is INFJ. Quietly forceful, original, and sensitive, tend to stick to things until they are done. Extremely intuitive about people and concerned for their feelings. Likely to be individualistic rather than leading or following. INFP is the healer. Shout out to my fellow INFPs. That's me. I am quiet, reflective, idealistic, interested in serving humanity, well-developed value system, which strive to live in accordance with, mentally quick and able to see possibilities, interested in understanding and helping people. INTJ is the mastermind, independent, original, analytical, and determined. have an exceptional ability to turn theories into solid plans of actions. They are natural leaders, but will follow if they trust existing leaders. INTP is the architect. Logical, original, creative thinkers can be very excited about theories and ideas, exceptionally capable and driven to turn theories into clear understandings. ESTP is the promoter, friendly, adaptable, action oriented. These are doers who are focused on immediate results. They live in the here and now. They're risk takers who live fast paced lifestyles. ESTJ is the supervisor, practical, traditional, and organized, likely to be athletic, not interested in theory or abstraction unless they see the practical application, have clear visions of the way things should be. NFP, that is the complete opposite of me as the supervisor and of the INFP type. I was just reading it and trying to do the math in my head. ESFP is the performer, people oriented and fun loving. They make things more fun for others by their enjoyment, living for the moment. They love new experiences. ESFJ is the provider, warm-hearted, popular, conscientious, tend to put the needs of others over their own, feel strong sense of responsibility and duty. ENFP is the champion, enthusiastic, idealistic, and creative, able to do almost anything that interests them. Great people skills, need to live life in accordance with their inner values. ENFJ, the teacher, popular and sensitive, and with outstanding people skills, externally focused, with real concern for how others think and feel, usually dislike being alone. ENTP is the inventor, creative, resourceful, and intellectually quick, good at a broad range of things, enjoy debating issues, and may be into one-upsmanship. They get very excited about new ideas and projects, but may neglect the more routine aspects of life. And lastly, the field marshal is ENTJ. Assertive and outspoken, they are driven to lead, excellent ability to understand difficult organizational problems and create solid solutions. Intelligent and well-informed, they usually excel at public speaking. So that's just a brief overview of the 16 types. I'm just trying to get caught up here. Um, to break it down a little bit more specifically about the spectra, the dichotomies that make up these Jungian types, that we generally tend to fall in line somewhere on a spectrum of all of these 8 areas, so either introverted or extroverted, and we use these terms sometimes kind of loosely without, I guess, without defining what we actually mean when we say them for the purposes of the Myers-Briggs or a personality assessment like this. So what do we mean by extroversion and introversion? It's how we interact with the world, where we prefer to focus our attention internally versus externally, and from where we derive our energy. So that's one of the important things, about the Myers-Briggs approach to introversion and extroversion. It's not about necessarily about being an outgoing person who is very social or someone who's not very social. It's really about where does the energy come from? Are we energized by being around and interacting with a lot of people, or is that draining for us, essentially? So introverts are energized by time alone. Um, they avoid being the center of attention. They think and then act. They are more private, share personal information with few. They listen more than talk. They keep enthusiasm to themselves, respond after thinking things through, and prefer depth to breadth. Whereas the extroverts are energized by being with people, like being the center of attention. They act, then think, easy to read, share personal information freely, talk more than listen, communicate with enthusiasm, respond quickly, and prefer breadth to depth. In terms of sensors versus intuitors, let's check this. Okay. On this spectrum, we have, sensors and intuitors. This is how we take in and process information. So sensors trust what is certain and concrete. They like new ideas if they have a practical application. They value realism and common sense. They like to use and hone established skills. They tend to be specific and literal. give detailed descriptions. They present information in a step-by-step manner. They are oriented to the present, whereas intuitors are abstract, figurative, symbolic, and they like original ideas. They are imaginative, they are ingenious, focus on novelty. They are intellectual, scholarly, idea oriented. They enjoy knowledge for one's own sake. They are theoretical, conceptual, big picture. Facts make patterns and are seen as original, unconventional, idiosyncratic, and value inventiveness. In terms of judging and perceiving, that is how we prefer to live a structured versus a spontaneous life, how we orient ourselves to the external world also. So judgers are stress avoiders. They early starters act to minimize stress. They try to avoid emergencies. They are systematic, orderly, structured. They dislike diversions. They are scheduled, prefer the comfort of routine and tried and true methods. They are planful, concerned about the future, like things settled in advance, and methodical. Organize, make plans for current tasks, list subtasks before proceeding. Whereas the perceivers are happiest leaving options open, have a play ethic, enjoy now, finish the job later. They change goals as new information becomes available. They like adapting to new situations. They are process oriented, derive satisfaction from starting projects, and see time as a renewable resource and see deadlines as elastic. And lastly, on the last dichotomy of the thinkers versus the feelers, and this is talking about how we make decisions or come to conclusions. So the thinkers step back, apply impersonal analysis to problems. They value logic, justice, and fairness, one standard for all. They naturally see flaws and tend to be critical. They be seen as heartless, insensitive, and uncaring. More important to be truthful than tactful. Believe feelings are valid only if they are logical, are motivated by desire to achieve and accomplish. Whereas the feelers are accepting, they are tolerant, they offer praise, take things on faith, they are tender, gentle, tender-hearted, they are accommodating, they are approving, uncritical, they like harmony, they are affective, so personal, feeling and relying on values, and they are compassionate, sympathetic, devoted, and emphasizes sentiment. So that is the difference, and that is what we mean by all these things. So when I'm talking about what are we assessing with a career personality, it's how we interact with the world, where do we derive our energy, how we take and process information, are we structured or spontaneous, and how do we make decisions. So obviously this is something that is impossible to assess truly and completely. So that's why when I mentioned some of those limitations of the MBTI, um, those are some things to keep in mind. So if you'd like to throw, oops, that's the wrong box. I don't need to see that. If you know your 4-letter code, you can throw that in the chat box. And if not, I will just highlight a couple of different types just to give you an idea of a breakdown of what the Myers-Briggs can do. I'm going to highlight the career development part of it, but just talk about its broad uses in general too. And this is the general population distribution here at the bottom of just what are the different types that are existing in the general population. So you can see the most common types as ISFJ at 13.8%, as ESFJ, and some of the least common ones like INFJ and ENTJ at 1.5 and 1.8% of the general population. But I will just pick up the first one on my stack here. I don't need to talk about myself as an INFP, but as an ISFJ, they are what you might notice first if you were ISFJ. You're warm, friendly, good-natured, unassuming, sensitive to others, good listener, constrained, and not communicate a lot, especially about yourself. In terms of your work style, prefer to plan the work and be prepared for the snares and obstacles that might be encountered, and are most comfortable getting organized before beginning a project. Are most drawn to work that is helpful and provides a tangible service to others. Prefer to work at one thing at a time, giving attention to one person or project without interruption. Want to know specifically what is expected of them. Um, During times of change, they foster change that addresses people's unmet needs and help them develop and become better people. Often respect experience and tradition, therefore prefer gradual change may take a don't rock the boat stance. Value fairness, want change to be fair and have a similar impact on all. Bring a sense of stability by creating structure and order. Do best when change can be well planned. Excuse me. In terms of contributions, focus on getting the job done and creating supportive, positive environment. Show strong loyalty to the organization. Value follow through and focus individual on group efforts and achieving what they set out to do. They themselves work quietly, sometimes unnoticed, to make sure that things run smoothly. Bring stability, calm, organization, and structure to projects, departments, and teams. ENFJ for Mia. Pull that one up here. It's from the top of the pile to the bottom. I have a stack of 16 folders right here. All right. And let's see. So for the ENFJ, work style. Work interactively, seeking to involve others and be facilitative, create and make use of networks to get work done, do their best work in a supportive, lively environment where there's a sense of connectedness and a variety of challenges. Like things to be organized, workspace, meetings, writing material, their work to be planned. View their work as helpful service to others no matter what they do. In groups and on teams, they prefer a collaborative, comfortable, harmonious work environment where people are included and valued. Where there's open communication and where contributions are recognized and appreciation is expressed. Create excitement and team spirit, make things happen, initiate, make proposals, spawn opportunities, and can organize people for a project. Create opportunities for people to grow and develop. But in terms of what it can do, totally, just in terms of the broad application, if you were to take a Myers-Briggs type assessment, oh, I didn't go over the fun part too. Hold on. I'll get there. But this is the giver, the NFJ. There are highlights for, let's see, careers, possible career paths for the ENFJ: facilitator, consultant, psychologist, social worker, counselor, teacher, clergy, sales rep, HR, manager, events coordinator, sales rep, politicians, and diplomats. But in terms of the broader applications, they use these to identify strengths, like we've talked about, strengths and weaknesses. So for ENFJ, good verbal communication skills, very perceptive about people's thoughts and motives. Comparatively, and what's listed as the ENFJ weaknesses: tendency to be smothering and overprotective, tendency to be controlling, don't pay enough attention to their own needs, for example. But also, they use the Myers-Briggs for, personal romantic relationships, what they're like as parents, so for parenting, to assess how you are as a friend. Like there's a real depth to these types of personality assessments that most people think are fairly accurate, just in terms of anecdotal feedback or in terms of qualitative data. But there really is a broad application. What I was going to say when I said I forgot to, I was skipping the fun stuff, just to talk a little bit about the history of the Myers-Briggs types. Oops, I did not want to do that. Let me minimize that. The MBTI was constructed by Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers. So it's cool that it's a mother-daughter team that came together over many years to formulate this assessment. It emphasizes that we all have specific preferences in the way we construe our experiences, and these preferences underlie our interests, needs, values, and motivation. It's based on the typological theory proposed by Carl Jung. Jung's theory of psychological types was not based on controlled scientific studies, but instead on subjective clinical observation, introspection, and anecdote. So these are obviously methods regarded as inconclusive in the modern field of scientific psychology. But Catherine Cook Briggs began her research into personality in 1917 upon meeting her future son-in-law, and she observed marked differences between his personality and that of other family members. So I don't know which one is like the outlier here, if it's him or if it's actually, the Briggs family, but it'd be really interesting to see what this person was like that made her further her research into personality. Um, she embarked on a project of reading biographies and subsequently developed a typology wherein she proposed four temperaments: meditative, spontaneous, executive, and social. You can see how this kind of applies to the four different spectra that or spectrum that we went over previously. And after the English translation of Carl Jung's book, Psychological Types, was published in English in 1923, she read it and recognized that Jung's theory was very similar to hers, but it went beyond what she had developed. Her daughter, Isabel Briggs Myers, added to her mother's research, which she would progressively take over entirely. And they began creating the basis for this assessment during World War II, in the belief that a knowledge of personality preferences would help women who are entering the industrial workforce for the first time to identify the sort of wartime jobs that would be, quote, most comfortable and effective for them. And then the original Briggs Myers, before the switch, before daughter had taken over, the Briggs Myers Type Indicator Handbook was published again during World War II, 1944. And the indicator became the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator that we use now in 1956 after Isabel took over. So I think that's some interesting history personally about the Myers-Briggs, and I think it's really cool that it's a mother-daughter duo that really pioneered the U.S. The American side of the research into personality here as it applies in the ways that we've talked about, not in general. Um, Clicking on over to the strengths. I know it feels like I'm always dogging on the MBTI just kind of as a baseline to talk about its limitations, but it is a really useful assessment in different ways. So it's a great tool for organizational success. It's often used for team building, group dynamics, professional development, leadership training, marketing, coaching, and like I said, couples therapy. Also, when I was highlighting kind of the breadth, excuse me, of the assessment. But it is a really great tool to figure out within an organization, when there are disagreements or miscommunications, why those might be. Often it's because people just have very different styles, very different personalities, and it can help bridge the gap sometimes when there are those breakdowns. So that's one of the definite strengths of the MBTI. Like I said, it's a good tool for career exploration in conjunction with another one, with other ones, I should say, not just one specific other one, but to help when you're looking at you're furthering you're interested in a job and you're furthering your career research by saying, this is something I want to do. You know, is this going to drain my energy? Am I going to be interacting with people all the time, or am I interacting with people all the time? This is going to be a great fit for me. Is this going to the way in which I communicate and make decisions? Is this type of a job going to be a good fit for me? Okay, just jumping around, just checking in here. Looks like we have some nice descriptions of our types here from the assessment. Excellent, excellent. Okay. So as I was alluding to, it's not the terrible assessment that I might have been misleading you to believe from the beginning. That is definitely not the point I was trying to make. It's an excellent assessment, just taking the limitations into context along with it. And how I would recommend doing it is when you take the Truity or the Myers-Briggs, whatever it may be, personality assessment, and you get these suggestions for career types or career possibilities that would fit a given type, is that you take it one step forward with these career researching tools like the Occupational Outlook Handbook and Labor Market Insights. I'm thinking I will tomorrow, talking about resumes, I'll dive more into the Occupational Outlook Handbook, and I'd say tonight let's take a look at Labor Market Insights, because there is quite a bit of overlap with these two tools. And I think it's nice to highlight Labor Market Insights first, because of how it differs from the Occupational Outlook Handbook. It is pulling from job listings in real time. So it's an aggregate of all these different job listings throughout the country. Um, and talking about, what are the skills required to do the jobs? What are the duties to do the jobs? Where are the companies who are hiring in my area? Um, and what's the outlook for it? And so that's where it's going to be a lot of overlap. What does it take to do the job? But what is the outlook for for a given job within the next however many years, 10 years usually? And what is the pay? That's going to be a nice overlap. But the nice thing about labor market insights, like I said, is it's pulling from quote unquote real time. However, they're defining their span of time that they're pulling from these live job postings. So I'm going to jump over there, just show off that. This is labor market insights, and I guess the easiest way to show one how to get there. So let's go to ascc.wsu.edu. I'm just going to start at the homepage. For the main campuses, Academic Advising and Career Advising Center. As I always say, there's plenty of great career information here for any student, any WSU student. It doesn't matter what campus you're at. It doesn't matter where you're located geographically. It doesn't matter where you're at in your career. So you could be entry level, you could be mid career, you could be late career, you could be retired. There's great career information here for anyone who is interested in it. So highlighting labor market insights, I'm going to go to any of these areas under building career skills, or I could scan down to resources at the bottom. We're talking about exploring your interests, self-assessment here. This will be a nice place to highlight some of the other things too. So there are featured articles, there's an intro, and then featured articles about um, whatever is relevant to this topic. So we're talking about uh, career assessment here. Some of these are sourced from third parties. Some of these are written by WSU career development professionals. So if it looks interesting to you, you should check it out. But the featured resources at the bottom, Focus 2 is going to give you, excuse me, the opportunity as a WSU student to assess these different areas for your career development. So you can go to Focus 2, sign up, and do an interest assessment, do a skill assessment, do a work values assessment, and do a personality assessment like this. And it's self-directed. It's you can kind of plug and play as you need to, depending on what you're looking at doing. You don't have to do everything that's in there. You can kind of just pick and choose. So that's a really nice career assessment tool that's available to all WSU students for free. But if you keep scrolling past any of these resources, you will see labor market insights. Excuse me. So for this, again, career researching tool, selecting an industry. Let me just jump over the chat. Make sure I'm not missing anything. We got two ENFJs. Very nice. Okay, selecting an industry. Always going to try, I should scroll more so I can see the drop-down menu a little bit better. I'm feeling, well, okay. Let me pull out my ENFJ again. And for the giver, facilitator, consultant, psychologist, social worker, counselor. Let's go in the human services field then, because that's a kind of a good fit there. I was going to go for social work if it's also, there we go, social workers. So it's basically going to give you the opportunity to select an industry, filter down further into career areas. So sometimes it's more like a specific occupation. Sometimes it's more like a general career area. Like this one is an aggregate of mental health, substance abuse, and social workers. And it's going to give you these 8 sections on the side: occupation description, employment trends, top employers, education levels, annual earnings, technical skills, core competencies, and job titles. I'm going to continue the filtering nationwide. I'm going to do Washington. That makes sense. I'm going to do, just because it's usually the best for highlighting the tool, and because I'm in Seattle, I'm going to highlight the county of King County, where Seattle is, largest county in Washington State. But this is going to help you when you get to those top employers to figure out which employers are hiring in your area. So I'm interested in researching being a social worker, and I have my MBTI Truity work personality assessment results, and I'm going to see how do these fit into the the description of the job, the employment trends, the requirements, the skills and competencies required to do that job. So I know I'll be counseling clients in individual or group sessions to assist them in dealing with different areas that we've talked about for this general cluster of careers. Going to click on employment trends over the next 10 years. There's a positive 13.3% increase in employment demand. So it just tells me, over the next 10 years, this is a safe area to invest my time in. If this is something I plan on pursuing, there will be opportunities there. Who are the top employers? So, maybe I've been on the large job posting boards. I've been on, LinkedIn, Indeed, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, whatever. I'm not having a lot of success on these open job posting boards. I should go to these specific company websites and seeing what kind of employment opportunities I can see if they have some that are in-house that are tied to their website. I'm going to go to Sound Agency, to UW Tacoma campus, to Valley City's behavioral healthcare. I'm going to go directly to those employers. I know that I have these people that I can research, these companies I can research now on LinkedIn, and start trying to connect with the HR people, with anyone who works there, to see if there's someone who knows someone that I'm connected to that works there, that I can start gathering information, making connections to further along that likelihood of having a successful job search or internship search, whatever it may be. So this gives you that like I said, pulling from real-time job postings, quote unquote real-time job postings. These are the companies that are hiring in my county. What do I need to do to prepare? I need a master's or professional degree for the most part for most of these opportunities. Annual earnings around 74,000 annually in King County. Technical skills required. These are ways that I can help, develop my LinkedIn profile. I can develop my resume, my cover letter if I don't have a job posting, I can say I want to build my resume by highlighting these keywords. And I have it here that will fit for this industry, this company, this career that I'm trying to pursue. What are the core competencies required? Social perceptiveness. And what does it mean for this? It's being aware of others' reactions and understanding why they react as they do. How important is it? It's 4.25 out of 5. It's a 73 out of 100. Again, this is great information you can use to help build your resume, help with any networking situation. If you want to reach out and try to set up an informational interview with someone and ask them, what do they think are the most important competencies and skills required to do the job? And, if you're researching something and you're not having luck with that specific job title you have in mind, or you're researching something and either, there's like a PhD required and you're not planning on pursuing that much schooling, or maybe the outcome over the next 10 years isn't as sunny, or the annual earnings salary wise aren't exactly what you had in mind. Here are some relevant titles that you can use to further your career research also. This is Labor Market Insights, great career researching tool available to you as a WSU student. So tomorrow, like I said, I will highlight Occupational Outlook Handbook and what it does. It's going to be very similar to Labor Market Insights. It might provide you a little bit more depth of information about a given job. But again, I'll hold off on that until tomorrow. Let me jump back over to the presentation and take a peek at the chat box here to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Thank you. Everything looks good there. Okay, so that is a look at Labor Market Insights. And again, I will look at the OOH tomorrow. So I've alluded to these also. What are some other types of assessments? Like I said, taking that Focus 2 assessment that's available to you as a WSU student, you could be able to hit on all these different areas. So you could do career interest assessment. There's some other ones there. Strong interest inventory is my favorite. Personally, there are decades of research that back up its validity and its usefulness in comparing your career interests, your general interests and disinterest to good matches for careers. There are skill assessments, our work values assessments, and like tonight, personality assessments like the Myers-Briggs. Um, just checking on that. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, scanning, that should bring me to the end of the Career Personality Assessment webinar. Thank you so much for joining and discussing how your own personal style may be a good fit or not for specific careers. I like to start off with these career assessment ones when I do like a string of presentations like we're doing this week for Career Week. Thank you for joining again. I like to start off with these ones. I interrupted myself somehow halfway through my thought because I think they're fun. It's a fun way of starting to do a career assessment to see like what is my style? How does it compare contrast to occupational opportunities? And then like tomorrow we'll move on to a little bit more nitty gritty. I have figured out what I am interested in pursuing. I've made that decision and now it's time to start working on a resume. So tomorrow we'll be talking about resumes. Let me know if you have any questions. The easiest way to get in touch with me is my email there, cmiller66@wsu.edu, and I will hang around for a bit to answer any questions there may be. Again, thanks so much.